Apple's 14.2-inch MacBook Pro with M5 chip, 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU, 16GB shared memory, 512GB SSD, space black, doesn't exist yet in the real product lineup. So what follows is an extrapolated hypothetical review based on how Apple has evolved the M1 right-pointing arrow, M2 right-pointing arrow, M3, M4 MacBook Pros. I'll treat this as the next general 14-inch Pro and focus on what such a machine would realistically be like, its strengths and its limitations. Design and build quality. Assume Apple keeps the current 14-inch Pro chassis, a 14.2-inch body with relatively slim bezels, flat edges, and the deep space black finish introduced on recent models. That design is already well regarded. Solid, stiff, and clearly more Pro than the Airline. Weight would likely stay around 1.6 kilograms, which is portable but noticeably heavier than a MacBook Air. Space black does a better job hiding fingerprints than the older midnight and space gray finishes, but it's not perfect. Expect some smudging if you use it without a sleeve. The build quality remains top tier. No flex in the lid or deck, a big glass trackpad with perfect tracking, and Apple's excellent scissor switch keyboard with backlighting and a physical function row. Compared with a hypothetical M4 Air, the M5 Pro's design is less about being the thinnest and more about being a stable workstation you're happy to use all day, with more ports, a better screen, and active cooling for sustained performance. Display: Liquid Retina XDR. The standout feature is the 14.2-inch Liquid Retina XDR display. Based on Apple's pattern, this would again be a mini LED panel with very high peak brightness, around 1000 nits sustained, 1600 nits peak HDR. Deep contrast and excellent local dimming. Promotion: 120Hz adaptive refresh for fluid scrolling and smooth animations. P3 wide color gamut and factory calibration, suitable for professional color-sensitive work. For photo and video editors, this is a massive step up over the standard 60Hz LCD and Air models. HDR video looks excellent. Fine color gradations are handled gracefully, and the screen is bright enough to work comfortably even in well-lit environments. The downsides of mini LED remain: a small risk of blooming haloing around bright objects on a dark background in extreme cases, and it's still not an OLED panel with perfect individual pixel control. But for most users, this is one of the best laptop displays available. Performance: M5 10-core CPU, 10-core GPU. If we extrapolate from Apple's past generations, the M5 here would be an evolution of the M4. A 10-core CPU with a mix of performance and efficiency cores. A 10-core integrated GPU, likely with improved ray tracing and media engines. A powerful neural engine to support Design for Apple Intelligence features. In day-to-day use, coding, design apps, music production, web, office work, and multiple monitors, this configuration would feel overkill for most people. Fans of the 14-inch Pro today already find M-series chips extremely responsive, and M5 would push that further with faster single-core performance and better sustained multi-core throughput. Where the Pro fundamentally separates itself from the Air is not just peak performance but sustained performance. It has fans and a more robust thermal design. That means under long workloads, compiling huge projects, rendering 3D scenes, transcoding 4K 8K video, the M5 Pro would maintain higher clock speeds for longer, with less throttling. If you're a developer or content creator, that matters more than a 5 to 10% bump in a benchmark. The 10-core GPU paired with a high refresh promotion display also makes this more pleasant for light gaming and GPU-accelerated apps, DaVinci Resolve, Blender, 3D engines. It won't rival a dedicated high-end gaming laptop with a big discrete GPU, but for Apple-optimized games or metal-accelerated tools, it's a very capable portable machine. Memory and storage: 16 GB, 512 GB. 16 GB of unified memory is now the realistic baseline for a Pro-level Mac. For many Pro users, developers, designers, audio producers, 16 GB is just enough rather than luxurious. You can run an IDE, a bunch of browser tabs, some Docker containers, Slack, Figma, and a few background tools with little trouble. For serious 3D work, huge datasets, or multiple VMs, you might start hitting the ceiling and wish you'd spec'd 32 GB or more. The key gotcha with Apple Silicon laptops is that RAM is not upgradable later. It's soldered to the chip package. So if you know you'll be doing pro video, heavy multicam editing, or machine learning experiments, 32 GB will age better. For general dev creative and productivity use, however, 16 GB remains workable. The 512 GB SSD is similarly comfortable minimum territory. It's fine if you store active projects and OS apps locally. Use external SSDs or network storage for large libraries. Lean on iCloud, Dropbox, or other cloud solutions. But if you work with 4K, 8K video, or large raw photo catalogs, 1 terabyte or more is safer. Again, the SSD is soldered, so there's no cheap upgrade path later beyond external drives. On the plus side, Apple's SSDs tend to be very fast, multi-gigabyte per second read-write, so everything from app launches to swapping and large file copies feels snappy. Ports, connectivity, and expandability. A modern 14-inch Pro typically offers 3 times Thunderbolt USB-C ports, 1 times HDMI, 1 times SDXC card slot, 1 times 3.5mm headphone jack, MagSafe charging. This is a big advantage over the Air, which usually has only 2 USB-C ports and no SD HDMI. For photographers, video editors, and anyone with external displays and peripherals, this makes life easier. Plug in monitors directly via HDMI, ingest footage via SD, charge via MagSafe, and still have Thunderbolt ports free. Wireless would likely include Wi-Fi 6E or Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5X, giving stable connections for fast networks and peripherals. You still don't get true expandability in the PC sense, no upgradable RAM, storage, or GPU, but for a Mac laptop, this is about as flexible as it gets. Battery life and noise. Recent 14-inch Pros manage a full day of mixed work on a single charge, and Apple's efficiency trend suggests an M5 model would do at least as well, possibly better. Expect 10 to 14 hours of web, coding, and office work at medium brightness. Shorter life, 6 to 8 hours, under continuous heavy CPU/GPU workloads. Because of the active cooling system, fans will spin up under heavy loads, but Apple tends to tune them conservatively. In light to moderate work, you rarely hear them. Under load, you get a gentle whoosh rather than a jet engine. Most of the time, it will seem quiet and cool compared to many Windows workstation laptops. Software and designed for Apple Intelligence. The M5 Pro would be built around macOS with Apple Intelligence features baked in, on-device AI for rewriting, summarizing, image cleanup, suggested replies, and more, plus whatever new tricks Apple adds. The dedicated neural engine combined with unified memory benefits these workloads and helps keep more AI work on-device for privacy and speed. If you already own an iPhone, iPad, Watch, or Apple TV, the integration is a major selling point. Seamless AirDrop, shared clipboard, iCloud keychain, universal apps, and handoff make day-to-day use smoother than juggling mixed ecosystems. On the flip side, if you need Windows-only software or AAA PC gaming, you'll rely on workarounds, remote desktops, cloud services, or a separate Windows machine. Who it's for. This kind of 14-inch M5 Pro, with 16GB RAM and 512GB storage, clearly targets developers who want a portable but powerful machine with a great screen and multiple monitor support. Photographers and designers who value the XDR display and SD card slot, but don't necessarily need huge RAM or storage. Video editors and content creators doing moderate projects, 4K editing, YouTube content, who might later want a higher-end spec if they go fully pro. Power users and students who want longevity and can justify paying for a Pro instead of an Air. If you only browse, email, and do light office work, an Air is cheaper and more than enough. If you're a heavy video professional, 3D artist, or ML researcher, you'd probably want more RAM, more storage, or a higher-end Pro spec. Positive points. Apple MacBook Pro 14.2 with M5 10-core CPU, GPU, 16GB, 512GB space black. Powerful M5 chip with active cooling, delivering strong and sustained performance for coding, creative work, and multitasking. 14.2-inch liquid Retina XDR display with mini LED, high brightness, HDR, wide color, and 120Hz promotion, excellent for content creation and general use. 16GB unified memory is a solid baseline that handles professional multitasking far better than older 8GB configs. 512GB SSD offers fast storage and enough space for most everyday and semi-pro workflows. Richer port selection than the Air, HDMI, SD card slot, multiple Thunderbolt ports, headphone jack, and MagSafe charging. Space black finish modernizes the look while remaining professional and reasonably fingerprint resistant. Long battery life and relatively quiet operation despite the pro-level performance. Deep integration with Apple Intelligence and the broader Apple ecosystem, making it a cohesive hub for iPhone, iPad, Watch users. Negative points. Apple MacBook Pro 14.2 with M5 10-core CPU, GPU, 16GB, 512GB space black. Likely high price, especially compared with Windows Ultrabooks or the MacBook Air. You pay a premium for the XDR display and Pro chassis. RAM and SSD are non-upgradable, so 16 GB, 512 GB may feel limiting over several years for heavy professional use. Overkill for basic users who only browse, write, and stream. They won't fully use the performance they're paying for. macOS and Apple Silicon limit access to some Windows-only tools and mainstream PC games, not ideal as a dedicated gaming laptop. Mini LED, while excellent, still isn't true OLED, so some users may notice blooming in extreme HDR scenes and might prefer OLED panels on certain Windows competitors. If Apple does release a MacBook Pro like this, it would likely be an excellent default Pro laptop for many creators and developers, provided they choose the right RAM and storage at purchase and are happy to live fully in the Apple ecosystem.